Okay, let's get into the top 6. Team we saw on Monday night, if they would have won and come back and actually won that game, I would have put them higher, but Notre Dame is at number 6. I love what Marcus Freeman is building. If you listened to the show on Tuesday morning, that post-national championship game recap, you know that I was incredibly high on Marcus Freeman and what he was able to do. Listen, that team was overmatched on Monday night, and yet they battled and they battled and they battled. The culture at Notre Dame is excellent, and the team, I believe, is elite. I will be absolutely shocked if Notre Dame is not back in the college football playoff next year. That's the level that Marcus Freeman is now kind of competing at. He's building something very special. It's not going to surprise me at all if Marcus Freeman is able to win a national championship at Notre Dame if he decides to stay there. I think it's great if he decides to stay there. I would love to see him stay in college football, but I do know that the NFL, maybe not this go round because he just signed that solid extension, but at some point, if he keeps winning, the NFL is going to come knocking. There's no doubt. And then the other thing that they're going to have to pay attention to, and I don't want to put this in anybody's head because Notre Dame fans are going to scream at me, but he did play at Ohio State. If and when Ryan Day decides that he wants to move on, that's the first call that any athletic director, it's Ross Bjork right now is the AD at Ohio State. But when there's an opening, their first call is going to be to Marcus Freeman. Riley Leonard is going to move on from the Irish, obviously. Looks like it could be Steve Angeli, maybe C.J. Carr. C.J. Carr is the grandson of Lloyd Carr, the legendary Michigan coach who won a national championship in the late 90s. C.J., his grandson, was the top 50 overall recruit this past season, so he'll be in there. I think Miami's going to have a really good offensive line. I think Notre Dame's probably going to have the best offensive line in college football, and they get Jeremiah Love, Janarian Price back. So their ability to run the football is going to be there. Now, will Angeli be able to run the football like Riley Leonard? I don't know. Will C.J. Carr be able to run the football like Riley Leonard? I don't know. But I do know that putting two backs on the field at the same time, which you see this a lot now. We saw it with Michigan last year. We're seeing it with Ohio State this year and en route to a national championship. We could see that with Price and Love. The defense certainly loses some pieces. There's no doubt. But didn't you just get the feeling that the culture and what they're building from a depth perspective was able to weather a lot of storms when it comes to the roster? I mean, this is a team that lost a lot of guys to injury, and yet they were able to still go out there and have a hell of a season. They lose Watts, Cross, Mills, Morrison, Kaiser. A lot of losses. I get it. I'm trusting Marcus Freeman right here. Great House is back on the outside offensively. They get that Miami game to start the season. They're going to host Texas A&M. That's the third week of the season. They get a bye in between those two games. So a tough first month for the Irish. They're at number 6. Now we get into the top 5. I'm going to go with Oregon right here. You know how I feel about Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. I think, candidly, they could go a lot higher than this. I wouldn't argue if someone could talk me into them at 2. Someone could talk me into them at 3. Someone could probably talk me into, I keep messing that up, talk me into Oregon at 1, to be candidly. They were the number 1 team in the country this year. They had the best regular season this year. They beat Ohio State at home before running into the Death Star version of Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. They got to replace Dylan Gabriel, but remember, they got his replacement last year in the portal when they got Dante Moore to transfer from UCLA up to Eugene. So now Dante Moore, who has started a bunch of football games as a true freshman for the Bruins, now he's going to be the quarterback, so he's got the experience, and he was able to sit for a year and watch Dylan Gabriel, who started more football games than anybody in the history of college football, and he was able to study under Will Stein, the offensive coordinator. So this could be a really easy, smooth transition. Now, does he have that elite level of experience that I love in quarterbacks? No, not quite, but he's got some. And some is better than none, obviously. Lanning has built this thing the right way. He knows how to win. It's in the trenches. Uyunglele, he's had 10 sacks this last year. The defensive line should be excellent. Yes, Tez Johnson is not going to be back, but Evan Stewart will. He passes on the draft and comes back to Eugene. They did really well in the portal. They're doing great in recruiting. They got the running back from Tulane, Mekhi Hughes. He has the 5th most rush yards in college football over the last 2 years. Purdue safety Dylan Thieneman, he's in there. So there's another Purdue transfer that I was just mentioning earlier. They added 3 offensive linemen that could all start next season. They added Bear Alexander from USC. They get Decorian Moore, the 5-star freshman wide receiver. Oregon's going to be very good, folks. They're going to be very good. From a schedule perspective, they avoid Ohio State and Michigan. So favorable schedule for Ohio State. Tough game at Beaver Stadium against Penn State. That one's going to be their Big Ten opener in September. And then they get teams like Indiana, USC at home. Their road tests are going to be like Iowa and Washington. Getting teams at home, that's huge. They're 38-1 in their last 39 games in Autzen Stadium. So Oregon in there at 5. Georgia's going to be at 4. Georgia and what they have done from a roster building standpoint is impressive, and that's why they will continue to be in here at number 4. I felt like it was just a down year for Georgia, and yet they navigated the hardest schedule in the country, won the SEC, and they were sitting there in the college football playoff quarterfinals with a backup quarterback. So, like, if we think Georgia is going anywhere or that this is some sort of a trend in the wrong direction, I think that we would all be sorely mistaken. Kirby Smart is far too driven. Let's face it, Bama is on a worse trajectory than Georgia at this point because there's more questions surrounding Alabama and their culture, the new staff, who's going to be their quarterback, than there is questions about Georgia. I don't have a lot of questions for a team that their last 4 recruiting classes were 2nd, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in the country. I know that they're loaded with talent. Even if they lose a few guys to the transfer portal, this is going to be an incredible team. Gunnar Stockton comes in at QB now with Carson Beck gone. Stockton wasn't the reason they lost to Notre Dame. He wasn't. He wasn't at all. They need to upgrade on the outside, and I think that they can. And then they've got to become a better and more dominant run team, which they were in their 2 years winning the national championship, and they were not last year. They need to get back to that. That standard in Athens needs to increase, certainly. Running back Nate Frazier, he's back. He looked good as a true freshman. And then they did get better on the outside. Wide receiver help is needed. I told you earlier, it's like, where did Beck need to hit him? Like, led the country in drops. Can't have that. So Zachariah Branch comes in from USC. Noah Thomas comes in from Texas A&M. He's a 6'6" player. So now you got speed, you got height. I like those additions, and to an already loaded roster, this is a team that is not going anywhere. Tight end Oscar Delp, he's a really quality player at tight end, so they're going to be right there. It's not quite as tough a schedule. It's still very tough, but it's not quite as tough, mostly because of location. They get a lot of their tough opponents at home. So Georgia at number 4. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you like this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.